3, 4, 5. By entering Fresno City College, you know you will be on TV. Good?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Go ahead one more
Your
time, Phil.
presence constitutes
Phil, a little
acceptance.
more dialogue over there.
By entering Fresno City College OAB 251 and by your presence here at the Fresno City College President Candidates Finalist Forum, you consent to be photographed, filmed, and/or otherwise recorded. Your entry constitutes your consent to
Matt?
such photography. Good?
Okay, awesome. Thank you much. Yeah.
I would think either right here maybe, or just on the other side. The candidate's gonna be up there. You probably want to be by the candidate. This is our moderator, Fran.
Hi.
This is our sign language interpreter.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, yeah, parking is bad.
And we cut half of our parking to
Big-
put construction vehicles.
Oh, so there you go. Okay.
The other thought I had is we can move those plants back. Well, you're almost done.
Oh.
Put you right here, like that. I'll put a marker for you.
We've spoken to Claudette about, there were questions about people who want to submit comments or other things after they've seen the video.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought
I'll
maybe-
mention that to
maybe
her.
you could
Yeah.
mention that to the, when this starts.
Yes.
That if they wanted, they can send it to the Public Information Office, they send an email to the PIO office. And then, PIO.
For their comments
Yeah, if they
or?
have comments or suggestions, you know, like somebody wants to rant about something, then maybe, if they, that way they go to one place, and then you're not
That's
getting
right.
them from me, and
That's
from
right.
there. So
That's
go
right.
to PIO.
Okay.
She compiles this and sends you, and then you'll know that,
Right. Or send them to Claudette, because she's going to be responsible for getting the comments to the chancellor and the board.
okay, so you want
Yeah.
to say that?
Yeah, I'll let her
They'll
know.
send them to PIO,
Right.
and then PIO will
Send
send
them
them
to
to Claudette,
Claudette.
right?
Okay, we're going to start. Good morning. Welcome. And thank you for being here for the Fresno City College Candidate Forums. This is our first forum this morning, and I just have a few housekeeping matters to share with you before we begin. First, the forum will last about 50 minutes, and the candidate will have 5 to 10 minutes to tell you about himself and who he is and why he wants to be president here at Fresno City College. I am going to read questions to the candidate that have been sent to us. However, if you think of something you want to ask, there will be you can hold them up there, blank sheets of paper in the back of the room that you can fill out and forward to me, and I'll be happy to read your question. Also, I should let you know that for those people who are not going to be able to attend the forums, that it will be posted on YouTube. So you can tell all your friends and colleagues that they can see the forums on YouTube, and whatever comments or suggestions they may have about that, their comments should be sent to the PIO officer, who will ensure that HR, specifically Claudette, will receive the comments. So with that, we will begin our first forum. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jim Limbaugh.
Thank you. Thank you, Fran. And first, let me thank all of you all, first for taking the time out of your schedule to come and listen to these forums. They're very important. This institution has a long and storied history, and the hiring of a president is always an important chapter in that institution's history. So thank you for taking the time to thoroughly evaluate each of us and consider what we could do for your campus as you go into your second century. I'd also like to thank Renee for spending the day with me, and Claudette for all the help you gave me beforehand to make sure that I got here. So thank you for that very much. I'd also like to tell you how much I appreciate this campus. I came to campus earlier yesterday and gave myself a self-guided tour. And as I walked around campus and I watched you all engaging with students, as I observed students with their ubiquitous iPads and phones in hand out in your quad area, and as I went through your buildings, especially your historically significant buildings, I got a real feel for the importance of this campus, not only to the students, but to the community at large. It's a real responsibility to be the oldest community college in the state of California and the second oldest in the country. And I respect what you all are doing to maintain the enthusiasm and the spirit that caused the college to be founded in the first place. So kudos to each of you all. And everybody I've met this morning has exhibited that same enthusiasm. So I appreciate that. A little bit about me and why I chose to submit my credentials for your consideration. I'm a first-generation college student, so I came to college much the same way as many of the students do that you all work with on a daily basis. My parents literally dropped me off at the edge of campus and said, "You need to figure this out." So working my way through that, I have a great understanding for what college did for me. I went through 6 majors, made some decisions along the way that in retrospect, if you have made decisions, you look back and say, I can't believe I just decided to do that. That sort of marked my college life, but along the way, I knew that college was going to do something for me that would help me be more than I thought I could be. So as I worked through my career, I've had the opportunity to literally begin at a very fundamental level. My career in higher education actually began as a housekeeper. I worked full-time as a housekeeper, cleaning toilets during the day and going to school at night because I was paying my way through school. And what I learned was the value of the contribution every employee makes to an overall educational experience. And I have close to my heart. I have been very fortunate in my career. I often tell myself that I'm among the luckiest people in the world. I have had the ability to work in academic affairs, in student affairs. I have done successful fundraising, and I have been involved with athletics as a compliance coordinator. And every one of those positions has given me the opportunity to not only test myself, but to contribute to the fiber of who I am and what I can bring this institution. I have found that as a president, it is the most enjoyable position I've ever held. And why is it enjoyable? Because I have the opportunity to work with good people, to collaborate and look towards identifying the best things that we can do for students to help them be successful. Every one of those students are looking to us to give them the opportunities to support their family, to contribute to society, to make a difference in the world that they live in. And if you consider the world we're in right now, we need all the help we can get. And so I take very seriously my role in terms of collaboration and partnerships to identify the best possible ways to make sure that our students are successful. In that respect, I've been so thankful for my opportunities to serve as a provost and to develop new programs, to serve as a student affairs professional and create a new enrollment management program, to start a sustainability program, to serve as the director of a large auxiliary services enterprise, and to manage a capital campaign successfully. And the reason I give you all of this background is I think it's very important that a president have certain skills that he or she brings to the table that allows them to fully understand the nature and the importance of the contribution of every individual on campus. Why Fresno? Let me explain first why California. If you've read my resume, you'll notice that I am a relatively new arrival in California. When I was the chancellor at Montana State University Northern, I served in a leadership role for an institution that was approximately 50% two-year programs and 50% four-year programs. And during that time, I really became interested in what particular value two-year program has in today's world, in a world in which the projections are that by 2025, we have to have significantly more individuals with a post-secondary education. And I began to explore post-secondary education in terms of two-year programs, and I found I appreciated the immediacy and I appreciated the opportunities to try new things in two-year education. So as I was considering my career, I thought, I need to position myself in a way that allows me to more fully engage with that. And I discovered California. I read with great interest about the amount of support that has been given California post-secondary education since 1960 through your overall plan. I read about the continuing support through legislation and through funding you all are giving through SSSP, student equity, those kind of programs. California is a state that is significantly saying we are willing to put money into post-secondary education, and in return, we expect for you all to prove that our money being expended is valuable. So, I actively sought the position at Oxnard, and I realized that I made the right decision. I love it here. I have been fortunate to live in several states, but what I love about California is the vibrancy, the good people that are here, the opportunities to try new things, but most importantly, the real dedication there is to post-secondary education. Why Fresno? Fresno, for me, is a perfect mix of what I'm looking for. I like the size. I like the size of the city, and I like the size of your campus. I appreciate the diversity here. I have always worked on very diverse campuses, and so the opportunity to engage with multiple ethnicities and cultures, I think, brings such an important tone to the campus that improves our educational opportunities. I appreciate the connection to agriculture. I have always worked in campuses that have that connection, from wool and cotton in Texas to the wheat fields of Montana, and now here, and I appreciate that connection. Finally, I chose Fresno to submit my credentials to, because in the draft of your most recent educational master plan, you have created a compelling and participative document that shows you were really thinking about what you want to do as an institution. It is very clear in the depth and detail of that particular document that you have taken a very critical look at who you want to be as an institution, what your challenges are, and what you expect of yourselves. And I find that opportunity to participate in a collaborative conversation that provides the chance to discuss who are we going to be as an institution and what can we do to improve the opportunities for our students to be continually exciting, professionally rewarding, and personally stimulating. So the confluence of all those factors is what urged me to submit my credentials. So please know how privileged I feel to have the opportunity to stand before you all today and talk a little bit more about Fresno City College and what I believe I can offer you all. On a personal note, I know you're not supposed to ask that, so I'm going to tell you right now. I have been married to a wonderful woman who challenges me and is as fascinating as the day I met her. She is a professional artist. I have 3 children who are spread across the country and 5 grandchildren, all of which keep me running. And I always say when you have grandkids or you work in higher education, you either get old very quickly or you have to stay eternally young. There is no in between. And I'm choosing the eternally young part. But most importantly, I'm here before you because ultimately, it has to be a match between the institution's history, its culture, the pulse of the campus, and the type of presidents you select. I believe I have a set of skills and abilities that could contribute to and complement what you all are doing as an institution. So hopefully as we go through the morning, you'll be able to find out a little bit more about me and what I feel I can contribute to you all. But again, thank you for the chance to speak with you this morning. It's greatly appreciated.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to start with the questions. And the first question, it's been said Fresno City College has a morale problem amongst its employees, especially classified professionals. What steps would you take to improve morale?
You know, when the word morale is used, I could ask each person in this room, what is morale and what's the problem? And you would each have a different opinion based on your own personal experiences. To respond to the broader issue of campus morale, let me define it as a feeling of sort of a blasé feeling, sort of a feeling, why are we here, sort of a feeling of we're not contributing as much as we can, I'm not appreciated as an individual. I think if you will allow me that definition, that's what I'm going to base my remarks on. I have learned that dealing with campus morale is more than holding a Friday afternoon fling or making sure you all wear the same shirts and that kind of thing. What I have learned about morale is that it becomes a one-on-one discussion. It becomes truly listening to individual employees and ascertaining truly what the crux of the matter is. In dealing with morale issues at previous institutions, I've always addressed it that way. There's no blanket answer. There's nothing that I or any of the candidates can do and come in and say, we're going to do this one thing and you're all happy, because it is so much more a very personal feeling about why morale is down. The best thing that I can do as the president is to first listen to you. The best presidents are the ones who listen and shut up. And I believe that the answers to the morale problems are found first in your opinions. How do you define it? What is the issue? What are your suggestions? I need to be able to listen to that. Now, let me give you an example of how I dealt with morale issues at Oxnard College. And again, let me preface this by saying that addressing morale issues are different for each campus. And a particular approach used at one campus may not be appropriate at another, because it's all dependent on the individuals like yourself that are here. When I arrived at Oxnard College, after talking to folks, listening to their concerns, I realized that that institution felt marginalized. It felt marginalized because it was the youngest and smallest of the three college districts. And I always felt that because of its location, it was the only truly urban campus in the district, that it was not respected the way the schools were in Ventura and Moore Park. So I began thinking about what can I do to assist with this, and I realized they wanted to develop a sense of pride in who they were, because if you look at their numbers, they were doing better than the other schools, for example, in basic skills acquisition, that type of thing, but they didn't know how to celebrate it. So I set about to make my year there one of celebrating the campus. I partnered with a foundation, and we worked out a program where if an employee paid $25 for a special shirt, that $25 would go into a scholarship, and we would just give the shirts, and every Wednesday was Blue and Green Day. Now, does this sound corny? Yeah. But what happened was the idea took off to the point where virtually everybody on that campus on Wednesdays was blue and green, head to toe blue and green. Students began noticing, they began realizing those are the school colors. People would kid each other about not wearing blue and green. Began talking about in the community, hey, do you see what's going on campus at Oxford? Yeah. There's a real pride in it. We began a series of employee recognitions in which a Blitzkrieg award was given. A Blitzkrieg, for example, and would notify somebody and say, I think so-and-so needs to get an award because he or she has done this to support the mission of the institution. And so we would just show up unannounced, balloons and cookies and T-shirts and all that in hand. If it was a class, we brought in 3 dozen cookies so the kids could all participate. And we would just say, this is why you're important to us. And we would celebrate that through newsletter and Twitter feeds and that kind of thing. Were those small things? Yes. But what it accomplished was that more and more people in the community knew that Oxnard was proud of who it was, what it was contributing to, and in fact, the proof of it was in the most recent student opinion survey in which Oxnard came out significantly above the 2 other institutions in measurements of caring about students, faculty commitment, staff concern, and treating students as important individuals. That is an example of how I happened to deal with some morale issues. And it was the first step. But the key here is talking to you all. I do not claim to have all the answers, but I know the answers are out there, and it's my responsibility to you all to engage in a meaningful fashion, to learn about what the issues of morale here are, and then develop a way that we in partnership can move ahead. Because you know what, friends, we're all in this together. We are all choosing to spend our time working in higher education. So therefore, one of my responsibilities as the steward of this campus is to make sure that I understand you, I understand your issues, and we're able to respond to that. So that is how I think I will address issues of morale if I have the opportunity to come here.
Thank you, Jim. And just for your benefit, all of these questions that I have so far have come from the classified staff.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So the next question. With the passing of AB 2558 and the changes in the accreditation standards, professional development for all employees, not just faculty, has become more essential. Describe your ideal professional development program.
My ideal professional development program. There's going to be a theme here in all of my answers, so at the risk of giving you spoilers here at the very beginning, when in doubt, I always go to you all and ask your opinions. Have I done professional development programs? Yes, I have. Have I managed them and created a comprehensive program for both the classified staff and the faculty? Yes. Did I create a Grow Your Own program in Montana in which we trained classified employees to be able to take on additional responsibilities? Because in a very rural location, it was very difficult to recruit people. Yes, I have. I think the most important thing I can do, in addition to talking to you all about what do you perceive to be professional development that is different from or the same as mine, is making sure that I have adequate funding available. Any professional development program will fall on its face if we talk about it and we can't provide the funding. As a most recent example of my commitment to that, Oxnard College is facing a $1.5 million shortfall in its budget, which is significant for a school of 7,000 students. Now, we have rectified that, and so we are going into the fall semester in very good shape. But one of the decisions made collaboratively with my leadership team is that professional development dollars would not be touched, because we understand fully the importance of your being able to engage with peers to learn about best practices in your field that you can then bring back to share with your fellow faculty, your fellow staff, and most importantly, to improve the lives of our students here. So to begin my vision of a professional development program, it would be first to make sure I have the funding available, and second, to understand exactly how you all define it for your needs. Then I have the responsibility to take all that information and work and create a program that can respond to the needs that you have. It is very important for me to emphasize, though, that professional development is more important now, I believe, than any other time, because things are changing so quickly. Things are moving so rapidly. We don't have to look any farther than technology. We don't have to look any farther than looking at succession planning, and I believe over 50% of the employees here are age 50 and above, and so there's some issues coming up in coming years about making sure those employees are trained to be able to step in and continue the good work of those folks. So please understand, I understand the value of it. We have to decide what is best for this institution to make sure that Fresno City College is always on the cutting edge of education, of technology, how to use that technology, and how to develop a learning environment that maximizes our students' opportunities for success.
Thank you. Please discuss how you typically engage in planning major campus change initiatives, including whom you include, how you involve them, how you communicate, and how much time it takes. Do I need to reread that?
Please.
Please discuss how you typically engage in planning major campus change initiatives, including whom you include, how you involve them, how you communicate, and how much time it takes.
Okay, thank you. Now, if I miss one, somebody yell from the audience and say, you just forgot one of it, okay? First, let's talk about where the major change comes from. If the major change comes from a document that has already been collaboratively created, like a strategic plan, that's one thing. If it's a major change that sort of erupts based on the concept of disruptive change, based on, oh my gosh, we're behind and we've got to get caught up, that's something different. So let's talk about it first from a change that has been recommended in our strategic planning document. Let's assume that the strategic planning document has already been vetted by the campus, so you're not surprised that it's in there, but we need to move ahead on it. If it is that particular approach, the first thing I do, which has been my custom, is I first talk with my leadership team about what are the implications of this change. What does the data show? What are the external and internal forces that could both detract from and contribute to this change? And can we afford it? Finally, the most important question, how will it affect our students? Once I have that information, I usually pull together ad hoc groups of representatives from across the campus that could be impacted, and I begin to get their feedback. Okay, tell me what this change means. How can you support it? If you don't support it, tell me why. What changes to the changes, if you don't mind that redundancy, need to be made, because ultimately, compromise is part of the deal. You can never implement change in its purest form. Ultimately, you have to take advantage of the culture. You have to understand the world in which you're working.
Okay.
Finally, the most important thing is once we decide as a campus that change is important, there are the 3 C's: communicate, communicate, and communicate. People need to understand why. They need to understand what the change is, what data informs it, because I learned a lot in my first presidency. You cannot make change based on emotion. Emotion can have holes shot through it inside of about 5 minutes. You have to be able to justify in a forum like this, in walking into a faculty meeting, in going to academic senate, why the change is happening. And you have to be able to show that you talked with individuals about how it came about. So once we decide as an institution, and we have the data that shows why we're doing it, the value to our students, and the funding source, then we take it from there. Now, if it is change that is disruptive, that you realize you need to change immediately, that's a whole other story. Let me explain that by giving you an example. When I was provost at Angelo State University, which is a school of about 7,000 students, I walked into a bit of a crisis. The first year to second year retention rate was abysmal. We knew we had to improve it because we were undergun from the regents to do so. And I pulled together an ad hoc task force of representative across everybody across the country and said, across the campus, and said, okay, tell me about the issues. And we realized that the problem, and the issue was, and I apologize, the issue was academic advising. There were groups of students that had 4 to 5 advisors, because some were honors and athletics and that kind of thing. And there was a group of 150 at-risk students who had no advisor. We had a significant issue. Pulled together an ad hoc task force, got everybody's opinion. It was a task force of about 30 folks. And they said, we need advising centers for each of the colleges, for business and humanities, agriculture, etc. I said, okay. Went to the CFO, how can we pay for this? Well, we can do this and this. Went back to my leadership team and said, this is how we figure out how to pay for it. Are you in on this? Some were, some weren't, and so there were a lot of lunches going on, my talking to them about it. But ultimately, in response to that significant change, within a year we created 5 college-based advising center, carved out the space, hired the staff, completely took care of it, but we had to do it because it was a change that was necessary for our students' welfare. Fortunately, at the end of after its first year of operation, we increased our first year to second year retention by 6.1%. The important part about the story is that there are times when change has to occur. And this was a time when I knew that if I didn't do it, what students were looking for from us, we were not able to provide, because students were not getting the support and help that they needed to be able to work their way through the institution. And that was an institution that was 38% first generation. So depending on where the change comes from, you handle it differently, but the most important component in both, friends, is communicating. I owe you all the respect to make sure you understand why things are happening. That's a key role of the president, is to engage in exchanges of mutual respect so that I understand what you contribute, you understand my side, and then we can go from there. Because you know what? Ultimately, the students pay for it if we're not in sync. So that's how I believe that I would handle change if you look at it in 2 different branches.
Thank you, Jim. New question. As the steward of the largest, by far, campus in the district, how would you, and this is 2 parts, ensure Fresno City College receive its fair share of resources and ensure collaboration versus the current competition with our sister colleges?
Okay. I'm smiling because the phrase, the current competition with our sister colleges, you realize that's a really loaded statement, right? So I'll go back to the beginning part. To serve as a steward for and advocate for this institution, my responsibility is to be a campus expert. And by that I mean, I need to understand the campus at a level of detail that allows me to engage in serious conversations, meaningful conversations about the capability of my institution, the potential of my institution, and the challenges that the institution faces. I have found that many times the advocacy comes up in unexpected places. When I'm fundraising, when I'm walking the halls of the legislature, I have to know about the pass rate in automotive technology. I have to know why Measure C is advocating for a brand new math and science building. I have to be able to understand that beyond the emotions of we need a new building. And what I have learned is the better educated I am about the institution, the more I can effectively, and that's the key word, effectively advocate for my institution. Nobody wants to hear from an advocate that does it all in emotions. We just need it because we just need it. I have to be able to say, our humanities program needs this kind of funding because our pass rate in X is failing, because studies have shown that if we have X kind of program or services, we can improve that. So as I advocate, and it goes back to the prevailing theme throughout my entire presentation, I need to learn that from you all. I made a few real bonehead mistakes in my first presidency because I thought I was supposed to know it all. And you know, it doesn't work that way. You make mistakes that I ended up apologizing for. And what I learned is that the way I can advocate is understand you all know more about the institution than I do, and I need to hear from you in that respect. That's why you will probably see me out and around campus a whole lot, because the best way I can advocate is not only understand the details, but understand the culture, understand the atmosphere, understand the day-to-day workings of the institution, so I can represent you in the most meaningful fashion possible. In terms of the competition with the other two institutions, the same tactic applies. I don't think that I want to go into a meeting with the other two presidents, into Dr. Parnell's office, and we all get at each other and call each other eyes out. I think that I have to come into it with a very measured response and be able to explain that our campus needs these facilities for these reasons, and have the data and the information necessary to back that up. That is the only way that I can effectively represent you all, by you helping me collect that information, by you all telling me, here are the challenges I've got, and then my responsibility is to put that into the context of the larger challenges of the institution. Understanding that ultimately as the president I may have to prioritize them, but I need to understand them before that can happen. So I believe that in terms of advocating for the institution, becoming a campus expert, understanding what the institution is, and then being able to bring that into a discussion is the most important thing that I can do. And did I meet all the points of the question?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please explain your understanding of the role of the student media? How much access would you grant student journalists?
My impression of, or feeling of, or philosophy about student media is that students need the opportunity to explore, to ask questions, and to share their thoughts. Now, I have read the stories about student media that have, for example, there was a student newspaper who printed a very controversial photograph of Mr. Trump in a Hitler uniform, and that created some controversy. I think that one of the things that we have to use student media for is always a learning experience. We have to help them understand what their rights are. We also have to help them understand what their responsibilities are as student media, which is why the role of the advisor is so important, which is why our understanding that the way they represent themselves in the paper, by extension, represents all of us. And so I understand that a strong and involved and vibrant student media can be an asset to the institution, but that brings a responsibility on my part and the advisor's part to make sure that those students understand the responsibility that they're bearing. In terms of access to me, I will talk, my experience has been that I will talk to a student media about just about anything unless it is a personnel issue. I'm a public servant. They are paying money to come to a public institution. And I have never sent the message that there's something I won't talk about unless it is so confidential that would be inappropriate, and my talking about it could harm other individuals that are involved. But beyond that, I have pretty much an open door. I've had student newspapers come in and talk to me. I've had underground newspapers come in and talk to me. And sometimes we couch that with, please understand, you know, your role, even though you're an alternative paper, you also have a role to play too. So I am glad to say that I have never been stung by that. I have never had the opportunity to say, oh my Lord, I wish I hadn't talked to them. because I try to be honest with folks, because I think you all expect honesty from the president. I understand that I have to work to gain your respect, but also more importantly have to work to maintain that respect. And I expect the same thing of the students. And so I want them to know that I respect them, but they have to also understand that they have to work to maintain that relationship with me. But so far, that's how I handle it. They ask a question, I answer it. And if I don't have the answer, I'll get the answer from one of the vice presidents or that type of thing. And if it becomes an issue that is very confidential, then obviously we don't talk about it.
Okay. What is your experience with supporting and growing learning assistance, particularly tutoring and supplemental instruction?
Okay, thank you. To answer that question, I'll just pull some examples from my background. I have opened a Learning Success Center at an institution that had no tutoring. We realized that the abysmal pass rate in our pre-college courses was at 28%, which is not a good pass rate, especially at an institution that was a Native American serving non-tribal institution, and we were not providing the services to the students from the 4 tribal colleges that fed that. So I have opened a Student Success Center at Angelo State University. We created the first campus tutoring center, and it was initially a mobile center where the center was in one residence hall one night and one residence hall the other night, because we were trying to build a following, if you will. And then the next year we created a permanent location for it. I've also worked with the individuals in student affairs to create a full-bore supplemental instruction program. Initially, it was based on English, history, biology, and math, and since my departure, it's been expanded to include every program or every course in the general education program. At Oxnard College, created a program very similar to the service programs you all have here. It's called the Omega Initiative to help address the disproportionate impact on African American and Latino males in terms of achievement, so we have created those kind of programs. I'm very fortunate to have been in the position, in addition to establishing the advising centers we mentioned earlier, to have been able to have a hands-on involvement in creating those particular type of programs at 3 different campuses. So I've also taken a look at the programs you offer, and I'm very impressed with, and I apologize if I say this wrong, Adele, help me, Renee, am I saying it right? Okay, thank you. And Simba, some of these wonderful programs that you all are already doing. That's been my experience. I've been able to create something like that at every institution I've been at, and they are still vibrant, they're still engaged with the campus.
Okay. What are the most likely scenarios in which a college president might need to take risk to advance an important goal?
The most likely scenario in which a college president needs to take risks. I believe that the first is if it is a decision that could negatively or positively impact the reputation of the institution. I think that the decision to move the institution in a different direction brings about significant risk, because we are creatures of habit. And to make a decision that we are going this direction, and demographics and data and financial status indicates we move this direction, that's a particular risk. I believe a president will take a risk in terms of advocating for a concept or a principle that the campus may find uncomfortable, especially if it is a topic that you don't want to talk about. Those are risks. I think there are also risks when a president has to make a decision that can bring with it a professional and personal toll, but you know that you have to make that decision for the campus. I'll give you a personal experience on that. At Montana State University Northern, 2 weeks before the beginning of the academic semester, I found out that my head football coach had misappropriated about $3,000 of university money, put it in a private account. In Montana, that's illegal. At $1,500, that's a felony. So I told him that he was dismissed. Understanding the type of absolute chaos that would cause, because the gentleman was also the son-in-law of the winningest coach in football history in Montana, to the point where his father-in-law had a statue of him at another college in Montana. And here I was letting go his son-in-law. But even though the community came after me, saying you can't let him go, it was only $3,000, I knew that there was an issue of integrity at stake, because what message was I going to give to those young men on the football team? Your coach committed a felony, but it's okay, he can go ahead and coach? No, athletics is something more pure than that. In athletics, we teach students about respect and self-discipline, and about the importance of working together as a team. And what kind of message would I be sending if I said that was okay? So ultimately, I resigned my position because I did not want to acquiesce to community demands that I keep the coach there. That's an example of making a very difficult decision. It was a risk, but I knew that if I didn't, the reputation of the institution would be in question. You know, they kept this guy who basically committed a felony, and they kept him. I knew I couldn't do that. Since that time, I questioned myself. It was sort of like the 7 stages of grief. I was mad at myself, then I felt bad for myself. Why did I do this? But in the end, I knew it had to be done, and that's what happens, I think, in this role. Sometimes you have to make a decision about what is best for the institution, and you have to understand that even if the risk is very personal, if you were doing your job correctly, then it's part of the deal. So I understand about taking risks. I understand about the importance of helping people understand why we're going in that direction. And it goes back to the theme I've tried to share with you all throughout all of this. You all, as fellow educators, are owed an explanation. And my job is to make sure that you all understand why things happen. My job is to work through your shared governance system and make sure those entities are part of it, because I take very seriously my responsibility that we are engage in a collaborative effort in this intangible thing called education, in which we are not going to know for 10 or 20 years if we were even successful. So we have to be able to talk about it. We have to be able to understand the situation and the outcome. And when that requires taking risks, then that has to be part of the deal as well.
We have about a minute and a half, I think. How many minutes do you have, Claudette? 5? Okay. If Claudette says there's 5, there's 5. My watch is fast. I do have one more question.
Sure.
What is your vision for athletics on this campus? What suggestions could you give to help connect our highly successful teams to our student body and community?
Okay. My vision of athletics. I believe that a campus is more vibrant and more alive when you have a strong athletics program. I believe that what a young person learns in athletics is invaluable. And I believe that a campus without athletics is deficient in terms of what it can offer students. Now, do all students participate in athletics? No. And sometimes have athletics been called, well, just a few people get to participate? Yes, I understand all of that. What I know is that, for example, if I may call out Oxnard College. Oxnard College men's soccer won the men's state soccer championship, okay? The college is 40 years old. It is the first championship in the entire history of the college. And it's a further Cinderella story because have you all seen the movie McFarland USA? My team was McFarland USA. It was all local young men who, as they said, grew up learning to play soccer in the strawberry fields while their parents were working the fields. And they took it all the way. And because of the way we celebrated that on campus, the entire campus was proud because that group of young men represented Oxnard College. And the important part about that was that bled over into how those young men saw themselves. They began doing things they have never done before. They began doing clinics for the Boys and Girls Club. They began going to junior high saying, stay in school. They began going to some of the most economically depressed high schools and junior highs in Oxnard to talk to them about the importance of education. So I understand and I see firsthand what a vibrant athletics program can do for the campus and for the individuals. In terms of engaging the broader campus, I think I'd like to find out from student government why they don't in the first place. Because I don't have that answer. Students don't go to athletics for whatever reason, or they do go for whatever reason. And that is unique to every campus I've been on. Oxnard, for example, the stands were full. The school I was at in Maryland, if I got 100 people to football, it was a good day. So it is all symptomatic of some larger, sometimes generational feelings. Athletics have been this way for this long because, and people feed into that. So I think the most important thing that I can do is try to learn from students and learn from you all. If, in fact, you're not participating in and supporting athletics, why? What can we do to make it more interesting to you? But more importantly, I think it's indicative of how do we develop community here. And I have learned that community as a collective is based on one-on-one relationships. I don't build community by looking at you all and saying, we're a community. You build community by taking the time and talking to each of you and understanding what it is and then taking that information and going from there. So, to sum up, athletics are important. I'm very supportive of it. I believe that it plays a very important part, but I would need to find out from the students and you all that if in fact they're not strongly supported, why is that, and then go from there.
And how much time do we have left? Do we have a minute or two for a closing statement? Looks like 1 minute. It'll be fast. Jim, go for it.
Go for it. Fran is telling somebody from Texas who's used to talking a lot to go for it, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge. I've always counted myself privileged to be in higher education. I believe that the United States system of higher education is the best in the world, and I cannot think of a thing I would rather be doing than contributing to an environment in which we have the opportunity to shape the future of our society. That's very heady stuff, but it's also very rewarding and challenging and sobering. If you think about the impact each of you can have every day on a student. Have you ever heard of the white space theory? Have you ever gone into Kmart and say, if they don't, ... I will never come back? Think about the fact that students today are having those same reactions to you. If they come in and look at you say, if they don't in financial aid, I'll never come back. You never know if you're the person that is their point of no return or not. And so that's a very big responsibility. I take that very seriously, and I believe that as a community of educators, we have a responsibility to understand that. Where I feel so privileged is I have the chance to work and be part of a community that understands education is so important. I offer to you all a set of skills and experience that run the gamut of higher education administration, along with teaching both honors seminars in architectural history and freshman composition. But most importantly, I offer to you all a dedication to the concept and a real desire to be a steward of this institution and to make sure that it is represented as fairly, as celebratory, and as often as possible, not only within the district, but to the broader community. Fresno has a really valuable entity here, and we need to celebrate that. And we need to remind folks that Fresno can be even a better community in partnership with us. So I wish you the best on this. You'll be hearing from 3 other candidates, and this is a big decision. It would be a privilege for me to come here and work with you all. But whatever you decide, please know that I wish you the best. Fresno City College, from what I've learned, is a wonderful institution, one of which you should all be very proud. And so whatever happens over the next few days, please know that I think the greatest of each of you all collectively, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I'd like to remind you to please submit your green forms to Claudette and her crew in the back, and our next candidate will be here shortly. Good job. Yeah, that's what I tell everybody. They want to know, what can I do better? Just be yourself.
I learned that at this point, Fran, they're looking for a man.
That's right. And by the way, there's 2 other candidates.
The one from
Yeah, she got offered.
Go ahead, Phil. We're checking. This is the interviewee mic, and probably a level about like this. Phil, go ahead.
This is moderator Mike. Good?
Okay, so pretty good mix. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, and I'll get you some water.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, welcome. And for those of you who were here earlier, welcome back. And for those of you who are new to this forum, welcome. And just a few matters to tell you ahead of asking questions to our next candidate. The forum's going to last about 50 minutes. The candidate will have 5 to 10 minutes for an opening statement, and we hope to give her enough time toward the end of the question so she can make a closing statement. Also, there are green forms in the back that should be filled out and handed in to the staff in the rear. Let's see what else. We're being filmed, and so there will be opportunity on YouTube to see the forums and any suggestions or comments you may have. You are to send them to the PIO, and that individual will forward your comments to the HR staff, specifically Claudette. Okay, so I think with that, oh, one more thing. If you would like to ask a question, there are stacks of blank paper in the back, and you're welcome to fill it out, and the question will be given to me to ask. So with that, I am happy to present Dr. Carol Goldsmith, and we're happy to have her here today, and she's going to begin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time to spend an hour or so with me and the other candidates. You know, this is a very big decision for Fresno City College. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Carol Goldsmith. I have been a Fresno native for over 30 years. I work at West Hills College as their president. Matter of fact, I've worked with them for 14 years, last 7 years in an executive capacity, first as their vice chancellor for 4, and then for the last nearing 4 years as their president. All through that time, and even when I worked at Fresno Unified, I've lived in Fresno. In fact, I lived right down the street. And I commuted back and forth to Kalinga because Fresno was my home. Well, when I became president, that's a very important role, and your community needs you to live in the community in which you serve. So I moved to Kalinga, but I kept my home. It's my children's childhood home. Of course I had to keep it. So for the last 4 years, I've been president of West Hills College, and you may have heard us. We're small, but we are mighty. We've done some great things. Matter of fact, I've partnered with many of you in the room. I've had an opportunity for the last 20-some years of working in this valley and working with not only Fresno City College, but many of the other colleges in the entire valley and throughout the state. In fact, you may have heard about that little $20 million grant we all got a few years ago. During the worst time in our economic history, it really was a saving grace for many of us. Well, I had an opportunity to lead that effort, and I had an opportunity to go up and down the valley and work with all of the colleges in the valley. And I always came away with, you know, we're doing great things here in Fresno. There is a little Fresno-centric in me, and I'm Fresno County at West Hills, But Fresno City College has done some wonderful things, and I've always been envious of all the vocational programs that you have, the sheer volume of students that you serve. The community here is so rich and vibrant and troubled and challenged. You know, many of you may have read recently a Brookings report that Mayor Swearinger talked about how Fresno's turning around and how Fresno is making a rebound. Fresno City has a huge part in that. And I think we need to tell our story better about the accomplishments that you do. We train here at Fresno City College all of the first responders, from fire to police to healthcare to paramedics. That's something to be very proud of. You're changing lives and saving lives. You truly are the gateway to thousands of people. And I think that story is something I've, as your neighbor, has applauded and been one of your cheerleaders. And I would very much like to be your president, work hand in hand with you to tell better our story. You know, some people ask, why do you want to be president of I'm already president of West Hills, but why do you want to be president of Fresno City? You know, there was, in your job description, it said, someone who has a clear vision of the college's opportunities and diverse needs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, I understand our valley, and I understand our city. I've written many grants, upward to about $50 million, being able to talk and identify our needs. I've worked with you. I understand our diversity and our strength, and our challenges, issues of safety, issues of diversity, issues of not feeling safe. And, you know, to be quite candid with all of you, I knew Tony can too. I worked closely with him, and his passing, his untimely passing, definitely has unsettled us all. And I've watched this institution, I've seen people come and go, and I've seen a lot of you work here for a long time. And the faculty, you've been solid. This classified staff, you've been solid. You've identified in your self-study the issue of administrative turn. Ladies and gentlemen, you need somebody from the Valley. You need somebody who's been a president, not somebody who's looking to slingshot into California or slingshot up their career. I'm not saying anything disparaging to any of the other candidates, but ladies and gentlemen, I live here. I love this community. I know what I'm getting into. Yes, it's hot during the summer. It's hot. But wouldn't it be a wonderful tribute for all of us to work together and celebrate the good work that Tony did and the good work that you do on a daily basis? You have a lot of vacancies. I know you know that. You have a lot of interims. We need to work together to make sure we get the right people who want to stay and do the work, because there's too many people in Fresno and the surrounding areas that look toward Fresno City College to be that gateway of opportunity. You know, again, Fresno's my home. I've been an educator for a long time. I was a kid that had a learning disability. I was one of those kids that probably shouldn't have made it. I'm the first one in my family to be a college graduate. Not only a college graduate, but I got my doctorate degree, and I'm a college president now. I beat the odds. And the only reason I did it is because I had caring faculty along the way. I had faculty at COS that really helped me learn and helped me write. And occasionally you'll still see a misspelled word in any of my emails. Please don't, disparage me for that. I'm working on it still, because every day we work. You know, one of the things I think is my hallmark at West Hills is I've been able to do, besides raise money and bring people together, which are hallmarks, but I have an eye for talent and putting people in the right places and helping them remove barriers so they can do the job they want to do. You folks are doing great work. Again, I've been envious of you for years, and I'm really excited to hopefully be a part of your team and be a part of your family. How am I doing on time? I have one more minute? Okay, so there was a Brookings report, and I talked a little bit about Mayor Swearinger talking about that. And did you know that Fresno City is the 4th largest tech growing city? It came to a shock for me. Now, I know Bitwise has been growing. You're familiar with Bitwise, it's down in the stadium. We need to have a bigger presence there. We need to have our students there. And I mean, you may already, but we need to be visual there. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about workforce just for a second, because again, not only do you transfer a lot of students to Fresno State, which, by the way, was my alma mater. I was a proud top dog, which is I'm an alumni of the year. I have local ties here, doing business in 30 years. I know the folks at Fresno Unified. I used to work there. I know the folks at Fresno State. Matter of fact, Joe Castro was my mentor. He was served on my dissertation committee where we work well together. Your other presidents, I've worked with all of them. I know the folks. I know the mayor. We've worked together on projects. And the two, whoever will get voted into mayors, I've worked with both of them. I know this community. I won't need to take that much time to know the community. I know the community. I know many of you. I need to meet all of you, of course, and listen to you and hear your stories and hear your challenges. And I'm a California CEO for nearly 4 years. I know the good and the bad. I know how to do this job on day one. That's what you need, somebody who will do the job on day one, somebody who knows the community and will live here. When I move back, I'm not moving to North Fresno. Nothing wrong with North Fresno, first of all, but I'm right down the street. I believe in Fresno High, I believe in Fresno Unified, and I believe in Fresno City College, and I would be honored to be your next president.
Thank you very much. First question. It's been said Fresno City College has a morale problem amongst its employees, especially classified professionals. What steps would you take to improve morale?
Well, you're right. You know, morale has done, I go back for the last 4 or 5 years, you've had nothing but change. And again, with the untimely passing of Tony, you've really been in a state of change, in a state of mourning. And one of the things we can do for morale right off the bat is listen and look and learn and communicate better. Now, I know that you have a strategic communication plan. In fact, I read it. I'm not sure how well it's working or if it is being implemented, but we take a look at that. And I think plans are great. They're wonderful, but we have to have some informal and formal communication across all stakeholders. With classified, we need to make sure that they feel valued. With our Senate, we need to make sure they feel valued. Let me take just a minute to talk about Senate. I talked about the C6 project, the Central California Community Colleges Committed to Change, the $20 million grant, which I was so fortunate to be able to lead those 11 colleges in the Valley. And I saw shared governance in different, or participatory governance, which is vogue of the day. I saw it work and not work for various reasons. And one of the things that I found out where it worked really well is when administration and faculty and classified had informal conversations, informal relationships. They could move just beyond the work. So making sure that there's a time and a place, yes, for the formal, and I know all of our agendas are very full, but we need to make sure that we take time to celebrate each other in big and small ways, and that we communicate broadly across all the ranks and to our communities and let them know what we're doing well. You know, the other thing about communication is not just an email or a newsletter, which I think are great and we need to do frequently. And it's walking to the cafeteria, having a cup of coffee and talking to somebody maybe you've never talked to before. And that could go for all of us. I mean, you have a lot of people working here. We need to get to know each other a little bit better because, to be quite frank, Fresno City has gone through a lot. And you have an opportunity now with a new chancellor and a new president. And I know there's many good people serving in interim positions, and God bless you, you've been doing good work in keeping the boat float. And the faculty and the classified, while all this swirl has been going on, who's been there? It's been the faculty and the classified staff. They need to be celebrated, and I'm going to dare to say, you need to feel the love a little bit. You do. And I'm not a stuffy president not to say that. You've been through a lot. But I know together, you're the first community college in the state, the gateway to thousands of people for a better life. You are the cultural center of the Tower District, and dare I say, most of Fresno. We're the main feeder to Fresno State. We have a lot to feel good about. We have a lot to celebrate. And I think when you focus on the good, you get more. Now, that's not to say we don't sweep our problems under the rug, because that's not good. But if you come from a place of building trusting relationships built on things that work, and have an opportunity to try new things without blame if it doesn't work, that will help morale. And I imagine, in fact, I had an opportunity to, I don't know if she's here, I had an opportunity to talk to your webmaster in the bathroom. And she was telling me, she didn't know who I was at first. We were talking about what does she do here, and she's telling about her web pages. She's got a lot of work to do. And I imagine she's gonna need a lot of support from all of us. And how do we make our web page even better in terms of engaging students and being a communication tool? Because we can use social media to communicate with one another. We can go have a cup of coffee. And we can have newsletters and emails. But we have to do all of it frequently, informally.
Okay, thank you. With the passing of AB 2558 and the changes in the accreditation standards, professional development for all employees, not just faculty, has become more essential. Describe your ideal professional development program.
Sure. Well, in looking through your documents, I kind of felt like I was on a counter-espionage as I was going through all your web pages. One of the things I'm really proud of Fresno City, in fact, I shared it with my folks at West Hills, they're doing this right. You have a professional development committee, or at least that's what I found. I'm not sure how robust it is, but that's a good start. That's a wonderful start, because professional development for me comes in a couple of different areas. There's different types. You have college-wide professional development. Those are all inclusive. Everybody's involved. These are these big initiatives, 15 to complete, the big initiatives. And then we have their contingency group, the faculty groups, the Senate group, or maybe just the M&O guys and classified. And then you have unit-specific professional development by learning area or by function, perhaps the basic skills group or the history folks, or some EOP&S. Then they have the highly individualized, much needed technical, individualized professional development. For example, maintenance and operations on how to use water and chemicals better during our drought and still have our campus look wonderful. Or it could be new ways using Statway in math. Not that I'm saying Statway is great, but whatever the math, it could be specific. Now, having said that, there's 4 different layers of professional development, and there's a lot of need. How do you fund all that? Well, one of the things that I've been able to do, and it's worked really well over the years at West Hills, is you kind of get a litany, a list of what people like, and then you see if does it tie to any of our initiatives? Does it tie to the Basic Skills Initiative? Does it tie to our facilities plan? Does it tie to any grant we may be writing? And then you can kind of try to categorize, because if you can connect professional development to our Ed Master Plan and any of our other host of strategic plans and communication plans, and we have a lot of plans, but connect it to it, then you can make the budgetary link. And the best one, especially with accreditation, if you can tie it to a standard, then we have to find the money, and we can. And I will tell you this, I have been very supportive of professional development in all shapes and forms at West Hills. In fact, under my tenure, I've made sure that professional development goes in all of our grants that we write. It's part of our instructional budget, it's part of our student services budget, even in the lean times. Even in the lean times, we have to continue to grow. Because how can we be leaders of education if we do not continue to learn ourselves? My dissertation was about being a learning college, and how does one lead? I did a national study looking at academic senate presidents, college presidents and vice presidents, and what their perceptions were on how do you create an environment where all learn, not just the students. And one of the biggest findings was that professional development is key. And on top of that, which I'm really pleased that I did at West Hills, and I'd hope I can do this here, because in reading some of your documents, while we're kind of landlocked and you have a lot of people here, and I understand sometimes it's difficult to find space for all of you to gather and to work. Luckily, I was able to carve out a little space at the West Hills campus where faculty and staff can come together, innovate, and learn from one another. So when people went to various conferences, they could come back and share what they knew in both small groups and large groups. That's how we can get the most return on our investment. And here's the other thing. I'm going to close with this. You know, oftentimes we think professional development is going out, which sometimes it is. But I've looked at the experience of your faculty and the experience of your staff. We have a lot of talent here. And maybe we could do a better job, or at least tap into those people to also provide a learning opportunity from our peer. So I think professional development is key. How can we be learners without it? We have to continue learning. From everybody from our groundskeepers to food service, to classified, to faculty, to even the president, and dare I say, the chancellor. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Please discuss how you typically engage in planning major campus change initiatives.
Well-
It's a long question.
Okay, let me make some notes. Go ahead, change.
Okay, change initiatives,
Okay.
including whom you include, how you involve them, how you communicate, and how much time it takes.
It's going to take a lot of time just to answer this question. Let me get some water on this. Hold on. So just to make sure I understand the question is how do you move forward with change? Who do you involve? How do you get them involved? How do you communicate? And how much time does it take? Depends. Next question? No. It really does depend. I can give you some examples. You know, if it's a facilities, you know, I'm familiar with facilities, believe it or not. I started my career at Fresno Unified, and many of you may have driven by the Fresno Cesar Chavez building. And it was a retrofit building, and it's a grand building. We serve thousands of students there. We've also done some building on my campus. So how do you get to design a new campus? For example, in Fireball, we're going to be breaking ground on the new North District Center. So how do you get people involved? Well, you invite a lot of people. And that means you invite faculty, you invite staff, you invite community members, you invite the City Works people, you invite your architects, you invite a board member or two, and you do a wide invite, an inclusive invite. And guess who else you invite? Students, because they have really good ideas. So we invite all of them. And then we start off kind of like, what is the rules of engagement? How long should this process take? What are our roles? What is going to be our time commitment? What am I expecting of you? What can you expect of me? In any project, I think that's important, regardless if it's facilities or deciding on a new LMS or deciding what are we going to do with, you know, you just passed a little bond, just a little bond. If I'm reading right, it looks about $200 million for Fresno City College. Well, I can tell you right now, you probably have more than $200 million projects that you need to work on. So how do we come together to plan for those things? Has to be wide. You have to cast the net really wide. Include community members. Now, how do you communicate? I like to communicate in various ways, and not just one way. Yes, there'll be emails and there'll be formal memos that go out. But if possible, I like to create a portal, because some people like to share documents and have a working place. I think that's great. But not everybody is technology driven. I know that's hard to believe for some of us, but it's true. I have some faculty who don't open their email. I just said that on TV. Okay, we won't name any names. But I know who that person is, and so I make it a point to go have coffee with that person, and we just talk. And then I'll write a memo. And remember the memo that actually went on a piece of paper? And I'll put it in his mailbox, because I know that's how he communicates. The point is, you have to communicate your expectations, your meeting dates, the time, and a possible end date. Because who's been on a committee that lasts forever? Oh wait, we all have been on, because we're in community college. We have committees that last forever. That's just what we do. But every committee has to know what their charge is, what's their responsibility, what's the expectations of you as a committee member, or what's the expectation of the chair. So that talks about change. And change, we live in a culture that's just change-driven. It's going to happen. It's happening now. The who? I always believe in a wide constituency group, because I think ideas in a vacuum aren't a good way to go. If anything, I always remember the Apollo movie. Remember Apollo when they're having a little problem, and they take all the things that they had on that space capsule, and they put it on the table, and they got around, they said, Houston, we have a problem, and they put everything on the table, and they got everybody around the table, and they tried to figure out how to make it work. Sometimes with change, you have to do that as well. You have to put it all on the table and get all the best and brightest minds and try to determine where do we go now. So that talks a little bit about who and how, talked about communication, and the time is really dependent. Some change measures, because it will require broad adoption, will require more time. Other changes that are forced upon us by an entity like the federal government or the California Chancellor's Office that have mandate change, sometimes our timeline is shorter. So the timeline sometimes isn't governed by us, but we can be respectful of that timeline and move accordingly. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Given the student equity initiative within the state, what does it mean to have a commitment to student equity? And how would you develop and apply your commitment at Fresno City College?
Good question. So the question is about student equity. And for me, equity is not just about, it's about equity and success and access. In reading your equity plan, because I had an opportunity to read them, I like the methodology in which you used. I thought it was very thoughtful. For any of you who are on the VPS listserv, you'll note that West Hills equity plan was one of the better written. I would think that yours holds up to that as well, from my humble opinion. But for me, equity and success really has been the work that we've done all our tenure. It's just that now the state of California has decided to help fund that, which I am very, very pleased to see. One of the things that we've done, and in reading your plan, it looks like you're doing the same, is that you're trying to link your initiatives to other initiatives, so it's not just one more thing you have to do, but rather you're being strategic and you're being intentional in how you can broaden the access and success for students. Being in education for 25, 30 years, I've seen the pendulum swing back and forth where access was the issue. Remember when we were just chasing FTS and we wanted everybody to come? Well, we really didn't talk about, are they being successful? And we really didn't look at the data like who's being successful. What are our disproportionate impacts on our, our African American males or our Hispanic females or single moms? We need to look at that, and I know that I'm glad we're looking at it. And we can all agree that we all have work to do. So there's job security, that's one thing. But looking at the data, and I think that's good to look at big data, and I know Pedro Avila, who is working at the district, looks at data routinely and gets that out to the colleges, because our decisions need to be based on data, but they also need to be tempered with the knowledge and the background that the faculty bring to this discussion. You can't make decisions just on data. It has to be part of the tool, and it has to be part of the discussion. So, what was the last part of that question?
Last part of the question was, how would you develop and apply your commitment at Fresno City College?
Okay. So my commitment, again, has been my whole entire life has been committed to student success and access, because I was a kid who shouldn't have made it. One of the areas I think that we have a lot of independent learners that go online. I think we need to make sure that they know that while you may be an independent learner, you're not alone. You look at any college in the state, our online learners don't succeed the way everybody else does. And it really doesn't make a difference of the demographic that you choose, or it's across the board. Why is that? I think that's something we need to have a conversation with college-wide and figure out, why is that? Because many of them are, single moms or single dads or working adults. We need to get them in the equation. Your Simba program, wow, what a great program. I can't wait to really look a little bit more into the data. It seems to be very, very promising. And if the results are indicative of what I've read so far, maybe we need to talk about conversations about how do we bring that to scale. Because if we have a boutique program that's showing great success and retention, let's expand it. Let's focus on the good. that'll be my commitment, focusing on the good.
Okay. This is sort of in the same vein, almost.
Okay.
There has been many complaints of unfair or double standards in treatment by the district. What is your experience in developing diversity plans? How have you closed the gaps in achieving diversity? And what is your record in hiring a diverse population in leadership roles?
Okay. Diversity, gaps, hiring record. Okay. Well, first, let me start off with the obvious. I'm a middle-aged white lady. I think we can all agree on that. And so sometimes when people start talking about diversity, they're like, you don't know. You come from middle America, you know, you're middle class. And all of that's true. First generation, true. Learning disabled, true. So I understand those hardships. But the other hardship and the other bias and prejudice I've faced as a member of the LGBT community, I've faced pain and being asked to leave. So I get that. So I might not be able to fully recognize that pain and prejudice as my brothers and sisters of color can, but I can certainly identify, especially of late, with fear. So, first and foremost, in your core values, we are committed to diversity through respect and celebration of individual differences. That's your core value. We must always go back to that. That must be in the daily operation, woven into the fabric of what we do each and every day. Not just a celebration each month of this or that. No, every day. You know, the other night, I admit, I walked on campus. It was hot, so I had my t-shirt on and my shorts. I was walking around campus and kind of having a moment with the big guy. And I noticed some signs about, they had the rainbow flag and it said, "This is a safe place." And it warmed my heart. And I thought, Fresno City College, as long as I've known Fresno City College, always has and always shall be under my presidency a bastion of safety, a bastion of free speech, a bastion where we celebrate diversity. That's my promise to you. So, talking a little bit about what I've done and how you work on diversity gaps regarding students. You know, I'm very supportive of having faculty and student conversations, and sometimes those get heated, and that's okay, as long as everybody knows this is a safe place for debate and healthy differences of opinion, but it will always be a safe place first. You know, I've always made sure that we look at diversity in a much broader sense of not just age and gender or Hispanic or African American or Hmong. We need to look at poverty. We don't talk about that a lot. We need to. We're in an area that our Congress calls the Western Appalachia. We need to talk about poverty because poverty knows no racial boundaries. So I've worked very hard, and I will continue to demonstrate my commitment to making sure that we have a cultural diversity culture. And I'm going to tell you, be really frank, diversity issues are not for the impatient. It will not be solved right away. It's not for the faint of heart. Those require some heady, heartfelt conversations. Our nation hasn't figured it out yet. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do here. And I know that, and I hope you know, because if not, I'm going to tell you, the office of the president cannot alone solve this problem. I won't call it a problem, it's a challenge. I can't do it by myself, but I do know this. I know a little bit about your faculty and staff. You have diversity leaders here on this right now who we need to empower and to embrace and engage them in the conversation with staff, with faculty, with students, and with administration. So, you know, you have to make sure, and I've done this at my work at West Hills, to make sure all of the stakeholders' voices are heard through various means. And I think that's one way how we create a culture of diversity. In terms of hiring, matter of fact, I was looking at my demographics the other day. They look pretty good. In terms of ethnicity, I'm West Hills College is a Hispanic serving institution where the vast majority of our students are Hispanic. And if you look at the administration ranks, we're about 50-50. So I think that's a good practice. I've hired many people of color. I've hired some people over 50. Can't forget about people over 50. I happen to be one. I know, shocking, I look really good for 50, I know. But I had to use a little humor, but let me share with you this. You know, as your next president, and this is speaking from the heart, I will continue my lifelong commitment to diversity by working together to make sure we really truly are a safe place and that we really truly are a bastion of free speech. So, that's it.
Okay,
Oh, one last thing.
one last
I
thing.
want to make a promise to you. I'm going to be bold. You know, Joe Castro is my mentor at Fresno State, and he's always talking about being bold. So I'm going to talk about being bold. Under my presidency, because I have a thing for longevity, I've been at West Hills for 14 years. I'm not planning on leaving anywhere. I'm a Valley girl. I'm a Fresno native, live down the street. Under my presidency, our diversity will recognize as our strength. And our diversity, we will be celebrated, not only by us, but by others. That's my promise to you.
Okay. What are your thoughts concerning SB 850, awarding bachelor degrees at the community college? The pilot programs, as you know,
Sure.
are set to begin
Sure.
across California.
So when I first read that, I thought, it's about time. This is great, because the CSU, in fact, I was part of the first cohort at Fresno State when they were allowed to have a doctorate program. They worked under UC Davis and Fresno State because the CSU at one time could not offer doctorate degrees. So other areas of education have been able to do this. I thought, finally, we're going to be able to do this. If you look at our nursing program or engineering program, they're almost there. So why not offer a degree in a bachelor degree? Because the rigor is obviously there, the need is obviously there. I mean, we hear everybody from, you know, our current president to our governor talking about the challenge of 2025, and we need more college graduates, not just at the associate, but at the bachelor's. And I was thinking, this is great. And then the details came out. So the details, for some of you who may not know, it's not that you can just offer a bachelor's program. It's a bachelor's program that isn't currently being offered. So nursing programs, because engineering, ag, business. So what occurred was some really innovative colleagues across the state coming with new, innovative programs with a twist. And that's unfortunate. I admire the work that they're doing. I think they're doing yeoman work, and they are to be commended. One of the things that I've tried to do every time I go to Sacramento is try to lobby and advocate that needs to be, the definition of who can offer what needs to be broadened. And I would hope that all of you would join me in that discussion with anybody who will listen. So that's one thing. Second of all, I'm a big supporter of it. You need to look at the capacity of your faculty and making sure that they have all of the degrees that WASC Senior would want, because that would require some accreditation changes. Now, under the current accreditation standards, each college is allowed to offer one bachelor program. But if you wanted to offer two, then you would have to move up to WASC Senior. So you have to look at your facilities. Do you have the facility space? Do you have the library space? Do you have the research capabilities that are needed? So if all of those things are in place, I'm a huge, huge proponent of bachelor programs at the college.
As the steward of the largest, by far, campus in the district, how would you, one, ensure Fresno City College receives its fair share of resources, and second, ensure collaboration versus the current competition with our sister colleges?
Oh, this question gets to the heart. I don't know who asked that question, but bravo, that's a great question. So again, having been a current community college president who serves in a multi-college district, I am all too familiar with this scenario. And I used to work at the district office, so I understand that perspective as well. So, what's interesting, West Hills and Fresno City, we both have a distinction in our district of being the flagship. We were what started it all. So there are some inherent costs with that. Our campus, while it's beautiful, and I love this old building, in fact, segue just for 1 second. When I was at Fresno State and I was an undergraduate student, I worked with one of the professors who did the beginning paperwork to try to get this on the historical map. So, and watching this happen over the last many, many years as a neighbor, seeing that has just been phenomenal. So I had to commend you again on a beautiful campus. But going back to its fair share, this is an old campus. And while you've done a fantastic job in renovation of this building, there are a lot of other buildings that need to be renovated. Now, couple that with the fact that Fresno City College is not only the flagship, the first community college in the state and the first community college in this district, but it's also the largest producer of FTS. So there needs to be some discussions. Now, having said that, I will be a champion for this college, but we also need to be good brothers and sisters of Reedley College and the now Clovis College, because they're our newest brothers and sisters. How many of you have ever had brothers and sisters at home? Anybody? Okay. So it's the same sort of thing. There's only so much money at Christmas time, and you got to make sure you get your fair share. I understand that discussion. We have to look at it through data. We have to look at it through facts. And we have to look at it, we just passed a huge bond. $200 million is a lot of money. Now let me tell you why I'm going to be a great president for you. When I was vice chancellor, I worked at writing grants, and I worked with a lot of entities and taking grant dollars and general fund dollars and leveraging them and being able to stretch that dollar, and created partnerships with employers and cities to be able to expand and use their facilities for things. There will never be enough general fund or bond money for this college or any other college in California. Unfortunately, that's just how we operate. You need a president who's going to be an entrepreneur and work with community leaders to be able to leverage the money, to be able to get additional space. I know the fire chief, Carrie Donis. I know Margaret Mims, the sheriff. And I know our police chief. We are their producer of their employers. We need to talk about what we can do together in terms of meeting our needs for those facilities and expanding. We need to talk to the city officials. If Fresno is experiencing growth and productivity and just turning things around, the reason for that is because Fresno City College is doing great things. We have a foundation that we need to build on. So, yes, I'm going to talk a lot at the chancellor's, and I'm looking at them right now, chancellor's cabinet. We're going to have those arguments put forward in terms of FTS generation and what is the fair share, because there's things that need to be taken into consideration in terms of it's a new college, we do need to help them out. In turn, they'll help us out in other ways. In terms of being competitive, I am competitive, but overwhelmingly I think I'm collaborative, because I think you can find common ground. And that's what I've based my career on. That's how we've been able to raise millions and millions of dollars for this valley, is being collaborative. I've worked with Dr. Caldwell. I worked with Tony Cantu. I worked with I haven't worked with the new president, Clovis, but I've worked with the former. And we can reach common ground, and we will reach common ground.
Okay. Could you please explain your understanding of the role of student media? How much access would you grant student journalists?
Get water. Well, I have to tell you, I am very, very pleased. Matter of fact, I've read several editions of the Rampage. Very envious of that. We do not have a student journalism on my campus. We do have it at the Lemoore campus, but we've encouraged social media. So I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. When we first started social media many years ago, our district wanted a very controlled approach, making sure the message and the marketing and the branding was all controlled, which is understandable and something we need to make sure we do control our image and our brand, especially on social media pages that are ours. But one of the things and I'm very pleased to say over the years, I've had many discussions at Chancellor's Cabinet, both as a Vice Chancellor and now as a President, talking about the word social. Social media is not, it's social, it's open, it needs many voices. Whether you agree with them or not, that's okay. But we need to be able to have a place to be able to have that discussion. So having said that, this year I'm very, very pleased to share with you, we now will have students that we're paying that will be part of the social media team. So now we're going to have students who are going to go to events, and they're going to be reporters, paid reporters. Well, we don't have a newspaper, but they're going to be on our social media page and on our Twitter page and Instagram and all the other social media outlets. So I'm a big supporter of students having and taking an active role of telling their story of the college experience from their experience. Now, having said that, sometimes their experience and our experience don't seem to align. And again, that's okay. That's where learning from both sides occur. Because what better way to learn about your college than to hear it from the consumer's point of view? So in terms of access, they're going to have great access with me as president. I look forward to working with them, not only in terms of being interviewed, but maybe also in helping me get the message out and helping heal this college and helping improve morale. You know, I started early in this conversation talking about how students have great ideas. I also think they might be great healers for us. So I'm very supportive of student media.
What is your vision for athletics? What suggestions could you give to help connect our highly successful teams to our student body and community?
Okay, so athletics, that was, as a new college president 4 years ago, I learned a lot about athletics because I wasn't a big athletic follower before. So I learned things like on the football, I got to tell you a quick story. So I watched football like Super Bowl like everybody else for the commercials. Didn't really watch for the game. Well, when you become president, you start attending, softball games and rodeo and football, particularly football, because we've had 2 championship teams over the last 2 years. Very proud of them. So when they run across the line, they get 7 points. It's called a touchdown. You probably know this. But then if something happens and then they run across the line again, they only got 2 points. It's called a 2-point conversion. I was very upset because I thought my team was being shorted and they should have had 7 points. So, having said that, I can laugh at myself and have a good time. My football players love that story because I've learned a lot about athletics. And I've been very involved with the commission and all the other presidents, and I've seen the importance of following the rules of the commission and what happens when you don't follow the rules. And so, first and foremost, having a very good working relationship with your athletic director and all of your coaches, and the importance of those mandatory trainings and going through the rules and following the rules, very important. Second of all, one of the things that we've done very successfully, and this may be something Fresno City coaches might be interested in as well, a lot of our players are also academic scholars. It's kind of a good thing. We encourage that. But part of being an academic scholar, we've asked for community work being given. So our football team, our rodeo team, they'll find a charity or a work group in the community that they go and participate in. For example, our football team goes to it's a skilled nursing facility, and they'll go and visit, folks, because a lot of people there, they're almost forgotten. So the guys will go and visit them, and our female volleyball team, they go and visit. We also have our Reading Buddy program, so our athletes go once a month to our Child Development Center, and they go and read to the kids. We also have, at the beginning of every year since I became president, I have a mandatory meeting with everybody in the gym, every athlete, every coach, and our residence halls. You folks don't have residence halls. They're fun, and they're a wonderful opportunity to have student life. But I got all the student residence halls, the athletes, the coaches, and then I asked our chief of police to come. And so we put everybody out, and we talk about what does it mean to be a student at West Hills, and the fact that little kids look up to them, the community members know who you are, you're in the newspaper, and not only are you representing yourself, and we're proud of you, but you're here to get an education, and we're proud of you. And so we do some team building, and we also talk about expectations. And after some recent events several years ago, I wanted to make sure that we had great conversations with our athletes and police. I don't want any of my young men getting in trouble with the police, and I certainly don't want them running and getting themselves in trouble. So we took a real proactive community policing approach with them as well. So I would become a little more involved. I'd like to hear the athletic directors and the coaches' view on how they would like to do it. I'm sure they have much better ideas than I do. I would just kind of be their cheerleader for them.
And how are we doing on time? 2 minutes, 40 seconds. So with that, I'm going to conclude asking questions, Carol, and have you go ahead and make any closing statement you'd like
Sure.
to offer.
So I know my bio is up on media somewhere. You've all read my resume and my letter. So you know about my experience of raising money and leveraging those dollars with community and state and federal funds. I think you've read about my work at the state in terms of the state workforce task force, bringing $200 million to CTE. And we talked a little bit about how I've worked my way up, and I know adult ed, and I know K-12, know the community college system very well. We've talked about how I am a Valley native, I'm your neighbor down the street. We've talked that I've had longevity of my place of employment, and I'm not looking anywhere else. In fact, I wasn't sure the first time this opened up that I wanted to do it because I really loved where I worked. But then I realized I really love Fresno, and I really love Fresno City. It's where my son lives and my grandson. It's where my family is. It's where my ties are. Most of my business ties are here. And again, I thought about Tony and his legacy and all the good work he did here. And I thought about, I know many of you, I'm looking at you now, that you've seen a lot on this campus and you've been through a lot. And I thought, maybe it's time for me to go home. Because we need to come together. We need to listen to one another. We need to move forward and move forward together. So I'm prepared. 4 years as college president, down the street. I know California politics. I know Valley politics. I know small rural politics. I know the people involved. I want to be your president. I want to come home, and I want to stay at Fresno City for a very, very long time and celebrate the good work that you do. So thank you very much. I am honored to be here. If you didn't get that, I am honored. So thank you.
Thank you. City College. I will ask questions, as some questions, in fact, all of them, have been sent to me to ask. And if any of you would like to write a question, there are blank sheets in the back. Also, the forums are being filmed and will be on YouTube. And if you want to watch the forum again or tell your colleagues about the forums, they can watch it on YouTube, send their comments to the PIO, who will get them to Claudette. And with that, I think we will begin. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Peter Mafumulo. Did I say that
You
correctly?
got it right, very nice.
I've been rehearsing. And with that, you can take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. I am the Vice President of Student Services, Roy, drove me around the campus today. And so we spent the last 30 minutes or so looking at this beautiful institution, if I may say so. For me, it's kind of a cathartic moment, so to speak. In 1995, as you will tell from my accent, I'm originally from South Africa. And we were looking at a way of helping South African blacks after apartheid to see if we could emulate an educational system that would help most South African blacks access education after independence. And my director, the person who was the director for my doctoral dissertation, said, well, you need to find a topic that you can write about that would allow you to do research that would help South Africans when South Africa becomes independent. And she said, why don't you look at two types of higher education systems? Why don't you look at the land trust university systems? Just as an aside, land trust, those are universities like Cal State, Fresno State. They came out of the Morrill Act of 1662. And then she said, why don't you also look at the community college system? Because the community college system, in her view, was one of the greatest inventions by the United States in terms of providing access to all people who were able and willing to go after education. So the two colleges that I looked at were this college and the other first college in the state of Illinois. So the cathartic moment that I was referring to is that experience that 25 years ago, I had this institution as one of my topics, and today I'm standing in front of you asking you to consider to hire me to be your president. So I thought I would just throw that in there. I started my professional life as a full-time faculty member, and I became a department chair, and then I was a dean, and then I was a vice president. Maybe I should talk a little bit about the experiences that I accumulated out of those responsibilities, and how those experiences and those responsibilities have equipped and given me the skill sets that I think I bring to this institution should you consider to hire me as your president. I was a dean for liberal arts for a multi-campus institution in Portland, Oregon, called Portland Community College, and I was the dean at the Cascade, which is their most urban campus that sits right next to the Columbia River across from Vancouver, Washington, and I was the dean there for 7 years. And then I got the opportunity to be an executive vice president for student services and instruction at Bellevue Community College in Washington. Bellevue Community College is a very large community college. In fact, the largest in the state of Washington of the community colleges, and the second largest in terms of size after the University of Washington. So I have had a lot of experience, not just working in leadership positions, but working in very large institutions, which of course would mirror Fresno City College as being one of the multi-district systems. And then from there, I got the opportunity to be a president and the provost for the Alexandra campus in DC, in a multi-campus system as well. The system that I was part of in DC is called Northern Virginia Community College. That's the name of the district. And I was the president for their second largest institution, which is almost close to this institution in terms of size, about 20,000 student and duplicated head count. I was there for 4 years, and then, as most of you who are married would know, and my wife said, well, you know, I miss the West Coast, and I want us to move back to California. She has relatives back in the southern part of the state. And she said, I would like us to move back, and I would like us to consider to maybe retire in the state of California. So we moved here in 2013, and I became the executive vice president for instruction and student services at Victor Valley Community College in the high desert, just 60 miles north of LA. So in all these positions, though, and I think the most important thing that I need to share with you are the things that I think would be relevant to this position, things that I've been able to do as a leader, things that I've been able to accomplish, not individually, of course. Leaders get things done through other people, you. But these are things that I've participated in developing, leading, guiding, bringing people together as a team to get them done. And some of the things that I'm really proud of that I want to share with you, and I'm going to start a little bit with student services and student success. One of the benefits of being a vice president for both, so to speak, for both sides of the institutional coin, student services and instruction, is you get the opportunity to get faculty and student services to work together across common themes. So some of the things that I'm really proud of that I want to share, some of which you know are the Student Success Initiative, commonly referred to as SSSP. I'm very proud of the things that we have accomplished in that respect. We recently developed a new center for our Veterans Affairs, and we were able to do that because of the revenue and the resources that we have received through the SSSP. We are currently looking at revising our orientation system so that the students are not only doing electronic system orientation, rather for, currently we have our orientation system purely online. And as you know, a lot of our students who have a lot of similarities as your students here, 75% of our students are on BOG waiver. 75% of our students place either on both reading and writing and math or one of those. So we have a lot of students who are very needy, who come to us underprepared. And I'm very proud to say the new system that we are developing, which is going to be a two-pronged system, is going to allow the students to receive electronic orientation as well as person-to-person orientation, where a counselor whom we just have hired through our student equity dollars would be able to work with those students on a face-to-face basis. I'm also very proud of an initiative that we just passed, which is going to allow early college opportunities for students from the high school service areas that we serve to be able to enroll in dual enrollment program. But most importantly, this is a program that is going to allow students who are traditionally from low-income families, first-generation students, to be able to take college-level courses at the high school before they come to us. I'm also proud to note that I led an effort, a partnership effort with 20 schools, 5 community colleges, 5 business sectors, to go after a grant from the state of California called the California Pathway Trust Grant. We received $15 million to develop 5 pathways that would allow students from the 9th grade to be able to begin to take classes across 5 technical and career places, certificates. I'm also proud to note that 2 weeks ago, we also received a word from the state that one of our signature initiatives, which is accelerating math, let me just pause and elaborate a little bit here. Our system, which I'm sure is just like yours here, when students come to us from the high schools, they take a placement test. Our placement test is called AccuPlacer. Then depending on where they score, the majority of them score at least 2 levels below it. It means they score into developmental education. And as you know, they never get out of it. One of the things we've done with this initiative, it's called Accelerated Math Initiative. Our faculty and our deans, we got together and said, is there a way we can begin to reduce the time to completion that it takes for students who score into developmental education? And we decided that we were going to design a system that would have 2 entry points. Students, as you know, the current math system is designed for people who are going to be going for algebra or pursuing pre-calculus or calculus. Even if you're going to be in social science, you still have to take the same sequence of courses. Now, our students are going to have 2 entry points. Those students who are going through liberal arts and social sciences are going to take statistics. Those students who are going through the STEM route will take the calculus route. And we cut the number of students who score into basic skills by almost 30%. That's going to cut the time a student takes to complete a college level math almost by half. At the national level, some of the initiatives that I've been part of that I'm proud to note, as the provost and president for the Alexandria campus, we developed an initiative called C4. C4 is an initiative that is adopted now by the community college systems across the nation that allows institutions to actually ask for resources to provide training to students across the country. That initiative in 2009 and 10 was conceived at the Alexandria campus, and I'm happy to note to you that I was part of that initiative, which right now has already educated 10,000 students across the country and currently enrolling 15,000 students in 90 cities across the country. I mention those as some of the examples that I've been part of as a leader that should you decide to hire me, I'll be bringing to this institution. My experience is broad and deep. I have experience, as I have noted, working in multi-campus systems. The Northern Virginia Community College that I came from immediately prior to this institute, my current position, is the 2nd largest community college in the United States after Miami-Dade Community College, produces the highest number of degrees, both in certificates and AA degrees. And I'm happy to note to you that one of those campuses that produces those certificates was my campus, which produced 24% when I was the president and the provost for Northern Virginia Community College, Alexandria campus. One more, I said my experience was deep and wide. In 20, I most of my faculty and done singular efforts that I have led that reflect the breadth and experience of teams of people whom I've led to accomplish. We, the American Association of Community Colleges, the for the Future, and the Department of State developed a plan to go and help 20 colleges in South Africa develop their student services infrastructure and faculty infrastructure so they could be able to begin to establish the community college system. You remember I told you I wrote a paper 25 years earlier about what educational system could be emulated by South Africa after the apartheid. That was the culmination of that paper, I was able actually to lead a delegate of people for 4 weeks to go and spend time in South Africa and help that nation develop its educational capacity. So my experience is broad, deep. I have led national initiatives. I have led international initiatives, as I just shared with you. And I've done this in the main because I've been able to bring people together, develop consensus to find answers to issues, and get things done.
Thank you very much. First question. It's been said Fresno City College has a morale problem amongst its employees, especially classified professionals. What steps would you take to improve morale?
I think the first thing I would do is do a climate survey. As a new president, I think one of the most important things is getting a sense of what institutional challenges are. But I would do a climate survey first. I would get my leadership together, and I don't know if I think we have a faculty senate as well as a classified senate. And I would get together with the classified senate president and my leadership team, and I would see if we could devise a mechanism to find out from our employees what specific things, if we did differently, would begin to improve morale. You know, institutional climate is usually a combination of many things. It's a combination of people feeling not being part of the process. It can be as a result of very poor institutional communication, where people don't feel like they know what's going on. Or it could be just participatory government, where maybe the system doesn't really empower people to be able to have a voice and inform what the institution is doing. And I think beginning the process by doing a survey to get a sense of what things are really bothering the employees, and then to begin to get a sense of what would the institution be able to do for those people to begin to see and feel like they're part of the institution. So that would be the first thing I would do. Then once we have done a survey and maybe do some, and I've done this, my institution where I am had similar challenges. And we have listening sessions every 2 weeks like this, where the leadership comes in and sits down, and people are free to talk about what things they would like to see done differently. That has worked well. One of the good things about that is it begins to develop the trust. When folks can talk to leadership, surveys have their value, but they're impersonal and remote. When you can get the opportunity to sit down with people and begin to engage them in a dialogue about what should be done to make the institution more amenable and supportive to their needs, that's another process as a new leader where you begin to cultivate the trust you're going to need very soon, so that people know you care about what their issues are. So those are the things I would do. And then I would translate those into an action plan, mapping out what we are going to do once we have got the results, and see if we can establish goals with metrics, and make sure a year later we come back to the constituencies and say, these are the things you told us you needed to do, and if we did differently, you would begin to feel valued and welcomed by the institution. You would begin to feel like you're part of the institutional process. Have we done our job? Repeat.
Okay. With the passing of AB 2558 and the changes in the accreditation standards, professional development for all employees, not just faculty, has become more essential. Describe your ideal professional development program.
Well, I think, you know, the professional development, successful professional development programs should be aligned with your institutional planning and your institutional priorities. And I'll tell you why that's important. in most instances, when institutions develop their educational master plans or their strategic plans, do not align the execution and the success of those strategic plans with the people who are going to execute those strategic plans. And that's faculty, staff, and administration. So right now we are going through the same situation where we are. We're sort of in the same situation in terms of accreditation. We are doing our self-evaluation. ACCJC is coming in March for the comprehensive visit. And we've been talking about all the issues related to making sure that employees, faculty, administrators are trained, but tying all those things, as I'm sure you have heard from ACCJC, among other things, they're big on this thing called integrated planning. I know you've heard that. Integrated planning from ACCJC's point of view is really in part about this question, namely, what is your institution doing to use data to continuously improve its programs and its services it provides to the students? And then at the same time, train and empower employees of the college to be able to execute the college's mission. So that's where I would start. I would start by saying, what does our strategic plan say in terms of the resources we have allocated for professional development? And I'm assuming that our strategic plan, or whatever planning instrument we have as a college, speaks in part about how we are going to execute our institutional priorities by making sure we invest in the training needs of our faculty and staff. So that's the starting point. But the first thing I would do is I would go to our strategic plan, and then I'll go to our resource allocation plan to see where and I'm assuming we will have those things in place, and I'll speak a little bit as to what to do if those things are not in place. I'm assuming our strategic plan is going to our program review, our strategic plan, and our objectives we have developed to execute those strategic plans are also going to have allocation of resources for personnel development, which is professional development. If we don't, then the next step would be to reach out to my budget and pull my team together and say, what are our priorities, and do we have money somewhere in these limited resources where we can increase the budget for professional development for all employees? Recently, where I am, we have developed a Center for Institutional Effectiveness, which is in fact geared to do exactly what we are talking about here. ACCJC, when they put us on probation in 2011, before my time, mentioned, among other things, that what was missing in our comprehensive plan was integrated planning and aligning the institutional resources with those institutional priorities. At the top of that was personnel. So we've developed a Center for Excellence. The Center for Excellence is namely designed to be a hub for faculty and staff to actually conduct a spectrum of professional development related things. So for example, we just had a professional development meeting related to how we were going to be preparing our folks for accreditation. Another one, the strategies we've developed through this system, is we have brought together our professional development committee, our faculty, our staff, and our leadership, and we've said, across these strategic initiatives that we want to execute in the next 2 years, where should most of our training resources go? And what webinars from across the nation can we subscribe to, which now we can see, people can view them in this space that we have developed because it has the capabilities. We have video conferencing capabilities where people can come in and actually access. So for example, we're looking at the American Association of Assessment and Evaluators in order to help our assessment, our student learning outcome assessment issues on the instructional side continue to be an issue. But now faculty can go every 2 weeks on Wednesday between very specific times, access discussions from across the nation through our webinars without having to spend money going to it. So those are some of the things I would do.
Okay, moving right along. Please discuss how you typically engage in planning major campus change initiatives, including whom you include, how you involve them, how you communicate, and how much time it takes.
Wow. Let me see if I can remember all the pieces of the question. You're going to hear from me ad nauseum about the importance of having an institutional plan. I know you have your strategic plan, and I've looked at it. I've looked at both the systems strategic plan, and I've looked at the strategic plan and the goals for Fresno City College. And I think inclusiveness, decision inclusiveness, which is anchored on, so let me just step back a little bit. We do have our institutional parameters for including our faculty, staff, and students, our shared governance structure. That's our official mechanism by which we should be including our folks in the decision-making process. So my starting point always is the following. I'll walk you through an example of what we are doing at the present just to give you a sense of how I do this. So we are currently looking at having a one-stop center for students. Our students are distributed across a spectrum of places for their services. Now, they go here for assessment, they go there for orientation, they go here for registration and admissions, they go here for the payment of their, and they go here. And as you know, those touch points sometimes are very impersonal. Sometimes we're not always warm and welcoming to our students. Sometimes students check out. So the discussion, which by the way was anchored on our strategic plan, in our strategic plan, when we do our strategic plan and we ask people what's important for the next 7-10 years, we had actually identified a one-stop center. Because one of the things we had done previously when we were doing an assessment of students' needs, we had identified that one of the leaking points in the pipeline for students was all these touch points, right? So I said to my leadership, where I am, is made up of the following. So you have a sense of what I'm talking about here and how I do things. My leadership are the people who report to me, my administration. The leadership is the president of we have 3 unions, faculty full-time union, part-time faculty union, and our classified president. Those are the leaders of the institution. They have a stake on the well-being of the institution. Then my administration, and of course, in this particular case, my president. So we came together and we said, in our praise report, which is our document that we produce at the year that shows the institutional priorities, here are the top 5 things that we are going to do for students. One of them is, in our facilities master plan, is a construction of a single space for all student-related services. How are we going to do this? So that's my starting point. Bring together the leadership, and the leadership is made up of the people I just talked to you about. And then once we agree about the common direction, the second thing I do is how are we going to communicate with the largest? In our shared governance system, sometimes we don't think about for lack of a better word, we don't think about the rest of the faculty and the rest of the classified employees. We think I have my shared governance leadership. I'm talking to the respective facilities and master plan committee. We agree. We've represented all the institution stakeholders. That's not the case. Because sometimes those bodies don't go back to their membership and communicate to them about what's going on and get their feedback. So one of the things we do is once the leadership has agreed on a common direction, then we create a plan by which we are going to communicate what we as a leadership have just agreed to the rest of the campus. And when we do that in two places, I talked a little bit about those meetings. We call those meetings twice every month. They're called listening sessions. They are like this. All major initiatives, people come in, they can ask any questions, and we explain to them what we intend to do, the outcomes we hope to achieve, and then we receive feedback. But then we also have a written set of questions we send in the form of surveys to find out what people's thoughts and ideas are related to the initiative. So that's the communication piece. The inclusiveness in the decision-making piece is represented by getting all the leaders and sitting down and saying, how are we going to do this together? Reaching a consensus, developing a communication plan. Please remind me of the other part of that.
The other part asks, and how much time it takes?
You know, it depends on the type of so like, for example, we are going through the one-stop. It's taking us almost a year because we are visiting different places that already have one-stop centers. So we went to San Diego a couple of weeks. My leadership and a couple of my faculty and staff went to Southwest College in San Diego. And we went to Norco College in Riverside to look at their one-stop center. We went to Chaffee. So it's going to take us a year to see what other institutions that already have this structure in place looks like. So we can come back now and see which of the examples we have seen we would like to emulate when we build our system. So in this particular case, it's taking a year just to get to see what other institutions are doing, get everybody together to talk about this and make sure all the constituencies have been informed and they are participating. We plan to begin the building process next year. So it depends what kind of the initiative and change effort that is.
Thank you. Given the student equity initiative within the state, what does it mean to have a commitment to student equity, and how would you develop and apply your commitment at Fresno City College?
You know, again, it's a collective effort. It's all of us as a team. And I know that sounds sort of abstract and ominous. We, like you, we are very happy and pleased with the state, the resources that have come through SSSP and student equity have been much welcomed. For us, let me just talk a little bit about what we have done and by extension respond to the question. For us, we really didn't have a very good capacity for student success. And I'm talking about student success in the aggregate. We didn't have a single building space for tutoring services. In fact, beyond just tutoring services in our gatekeeper courses, we didn't have very much in the form of tutoring services in the disciplines. So one of the things we did when we received the first revenue from the state last year, which was true for all institutions across the state of California, is I went to the leadership that I was referencing. I went to my academic senate, I went to my administrative team, and I said, for the first time, we have $700,000 that is going to help us begin to talk about how students are doing once they're in the classroom. Because as you know, SSSP is really about the student coming into the institution, right? Orientation, assessment, placement, but once they're in the classroom, really we didn't have a statewide kind of, and student equity allows us, at least the funding, allows us now to say, what about the other dimension of student success, namely the academic and pedagogical factors? So we said, what are we going to do with this revenue to enhance that piece, to make sure that we have more support infrastructure, and we are also able to support our faculty on this particular piece of the equation, namely the student equity success in the classroom. And we agreed that we needed to have a position that would own the responsibility of putting together the success initiatives and bringing the institution together across this very important point of student success equity. So we developed and hired an associate dean for student success and equity programs. So, and I keep going back to these collective efforts that represent how we work together as a team, because I want to impress it upon you that this isn't about me. This isn't about me as a singular individual and what I think. It's about my ability to identify what needs to be done, make the case to the college constituencies, bring people together to find solutions. It's one of my dependable strengths. So we developed this position. As an outcome of that position, which we have already hired, we now have a single space for tutoring services, something we wouldn't have been able to do without a position that owns the responsibility of bringing together institutional resources around student equity. We are much like you in terms of our student demographics. I said about 75% of our students are on the BOG waiver. About 78% of our students come to us underprepared. I mentioned that they place either in one of the English reading and writing or math or both. And as you know, the amount of work to help those students with persistence and completion is ominous. So student equity to me means that the institution has banded together to find a way to provide both student services, support, and instructional and academic support mechanisms to make sure the student is succeeding in the classroom. So.
Next question. What are your thoughts related to transfer advocacy, increasing transfer rates?
You know, there are 5, when you go through, as I'm sure you'll be ready to do very soon in preparation of your self-evaluation, in preparation for your affirmation of accreditation in 2018. The state of California through the Student Success Scorecard, which, by the way, links back to student equity and student success, has said, look, there are 5 areas that institutions should really be concerned about around the student success life cycle, right? It's persistence, how students are doing from course to course, right? Are your students, those momentum points, I'm throwing a lot of things at you. And so the state has said you have to be concerned about how your students who are in the basic skills, those students who may be scoring 2 or 1 level below college level, how are those students actually progressing through the continuum towards being able to take college level courses, and then of course being able to begin to take courses that are in their majors, so that they're able to graduate if they want a certificate or an AA degree, or transfer if they want to go to a 4-year institution. So I'm mentioning those because it's more than just transfer. It's persistence through the momentum points. It's persistence from course to course for our students. It's students graduating in their respective fields they have chosen, whether that it's in the career and technical areas where students just come in and they just want to take a certificate in automotive, or a student who wants to transfer to UCLA or any of the 4 institutions. So in other words, of course, it's one of our 5 important student success priorities, student transferring to other four-year institution is one of the greatest, I think, services that we provide as a community college, because it's that access point at the end of the day that allows the majority of the students to access higher education. And so some of the things we've done to maximize the opportunity for students to be able to transfer. In fact, just last week, we had a contingent of our students who went to what is referred to as traditional black colleges, most of which are in the Midwest and the South. So we're doing this because we decided through our strategic educational plan that providing access for baccalaureate degrees for the students who come from traditionally underserved students is one of our primary goals. And to enlarge that world, and this is a state initiative, by the way, it's the state of California's initiative. We just took advantage of it and partnered with a couple of colleges, Glendale, VVC, which is where I am, and 3 other colleges. And we sent these students down to 7 colleges that the state has developed an admission, what is called guaranteed admission. So all the students in our institutions who have taken certain classes and have certain qualifications would be able, when they graduate, to go to any one of those 8 institutions and will not have to take any courses beyond the 2-year degree applicable courses in those institutions. So those are some of the things I'm happy about that speak to how we increase capacity for students to be able to transfer, because other things being equal, ultimately that's the access to the American dream, is making a point that these students, most of whom come from traditionally underserved populations, have access to higher education.
Thank you. There has been many complaints of unfair or double standards in the treatment of employees by the district. There are 3 parts to this question. What is your experience in developing diversity plans? How have you closed the gaps in achieving diversity? What is your record in hiring a diverse population in leadership roles?
I'm actually going to start with the last part of the question. I think one of the things that I really pride myself about is a list of initiatives I've been part of that speaks to the diversification of our staff, faculty, and leadership. One of the things that we studied this in Oregon when I was working for Portland Community College, was on the faculty side of the house. And in fact, we are going through this, the state of California gave us a lot of money, gave community colleges a lot of money to hire more faculty. I'm sure you're doing the same. And I'm going to talk a little bit about faculty because that's an example of what we are going through right now. One of the challenges sometimes that institutions face in getting diverse pools of faculty is where you reach through your HR, right? Sometimes HR, they can send requests to professional entities, they can do all sorts of things, and when you look at the pool of people who are applying, sometimes it's just not diverse. We were just having this discussion yesterday when we were doing a final interview with our English faculty. Diversification of our faculty, as it is the case with staff and leadership, is one of our core strategic initiatives. We do want to try all we can to make sure that the institution does reflect the students it serves. But we need to find qualified people to do so. One of the things that I think and we're just beginning to talk about this, is in Oregon we developed a program, we called it Grow Your Own Leadership, What we said was, let's look at people we have in the institution already, like part-time faculty, as an example. Let's see how many part-time faculty of color are here who are interested in becoming full-time faculty. Let's develop a plan, an institutional plan with HR. That is going to be a transition plan that is going to allow us to identify those part-time faculty, see if we can train them on the basic things that faculty are looking for, we are looking for when we hire faculty. Of course, we're looking for faculty who are experts in their disciplines. We're looking for faculty who are going to participate in the well-being of the institution. They're going to participate in committees. They're going to participate in, and let's teach them and make sure that they have the skill sets that they are going to be asked to demonstrate should full-time opportunities come. And that worked well for us. We increased our full-time faculty numbers of color in our first 2 years by 6%, just by doing that. Another thing we did was we said, why don't we go to the local graduate schools, right? And we're beginning to do that now. Graduate schools, local graduate schools, have a lot of students of color in various disciplines who are going through graduate programs. What if we go to these universities and we say, we are looking at diversifying our full-time faculty? Can you point us to those students who are in your graduate programs who want to teach? Because now, as you know, if you want to teach as a full-time professor, we are it. The community college system right now is the best prospect for you as an academic graduating from an institution if you want to be part of the higher education system. That also helped our numbers by far. And then we had two times a year, we had what we called, so let me stay with the universities because that's where we got our greatest numbers. So we had agreements with all the graduate schools. And the agreements, we took our department chairs who are the experts in the disciplines, and we met with the deans of the respective graduate schools. And we had this annual venue where every year we come in to talk about, in this case, Portland Community College, why it was a wonderful place to come to. But let me then just talk in general. Obviously, the diversifying an institution begins with the institutional plan. It begins at the top, right? It begins at the top. When I say it begins at the top, I mean to say that it has to be a plan with measurable metrics, specific outcomes. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So one of the things that I have done is when we have our diversity committee, for example, which I know you do have here, one of the things we have said is what are the goals in terms of helping HR across the institution and helping the respective divisions or offices if it's classified or it's what are the specific goals for the diversity committee that speak to how we are going to work together at increasing the diversification of of our faculty and staff. So there were some permutations of your questions I'm sure I didn't elaborate to. But those are some of the strategies that we have used. So it's about hiring, developing the mechanism to actually grow your own, diversifying where you reach out to find diversified, qualified folks. They are there. They're just hard to find for some areas, but they are out there. And then hiring early, because in some cases, those diversified folks who are qualified get taken really fast. So if your institution is slow in developing a system, and institutions have internal issues, you're going to miss out because you have a limited pool of those qualified folks. But also, I forgot, also working with the local high schools. Local high schools do have a lot of teachers who have master's degrees in the discipline, who might be willing to teach for you. That's another avenue.
Well, we have run out of time.
Oh my gosh.
I have to close the portion where I'm asking you questions, but would like to provide you with a quick minute. Maybe it's a New York minute, or I don't know, just don't make it a Texas minute,
All right.
for closing statement.
All right. I apologize. I saw the finger going like this, but I was so much in. I wasn't paying attention. Well, I bring to you a deep and very expansive experience and accomplishments. I bring to you a lot of resources in the form of what I've been able in my previous experiences. As I mentioned to you, I've been part of some of the most innovative, both national initiatives that are designed to provide educational opportunities to our students. Some of those initiatives have been borrowed and executed by the United States Department of Education. Some of them are in multiple institutions across the United States. But I think the most important thing, apart from those accomplishments, I think it's my character, it's my ability as a leader to bring people together for a singular purpose of finding the best strategies to develop quality programs, excellent services to our students in order to serve these wonderful populations who would not have access to higher education without the presence of the American community college system. I have this notorious saying, and I say it all the time because it captures the substance and the essence of who we are as a community college system. I often say, and it is true, that the community college system is the Ellis Island of the 21st century for immigrant families. We are the singular and the only on-ramp to middle-class life and the American promise in this entire nation. And I'm very excited to be part of that institution, and I'm very proud of the opportunity that you have given me to come in front of you today and talk about why I think I would contribute greatly towards making this phenomenal institution even more successful. So that's my story, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, this concludes the forums. Thank you all for attending. If you have your comment sheets, you want to pass them to the HR staff in the back. And have a great day. Thank you, Peter. Good job. I know you got a long day ahead, but you're gonna do fine, I'm certain. Yeah. I will see you tomorrow.
All right.
At the final interviews.
All right.
Yeah.